8th of January 2026. And it's evening here in Israel, which means it's also the time in Iran that Prince Reza Shah Pahlavi has announced yesterday that today, at this time, would be something special, he said, and that he gave essentially a command, even though he's not actually the king of Iran in any sense at the moment, although a lot of people in Iran want him to be, or review him as that. He's the son of the former king, and he basically gave them a command that said, "Go out onto the streets at this time," and that something special would happen, without being specific about it. If you had to guess, what do you think that something special would be? My personal take, without prognosticating too much, is he basically wants to see how many people are going to go out into the street to protest the sitting regime of the dictatorship of the Ayatollah, right, in Iran currently. And based on the number of people and what the results of that will be, that he said will be, instructional for what his next so-called command would be. So it's up to the people in Iran now to see if they're going to get 3 to 5 million people out on the streets and overthrow that government. But, if it's just going to be a bunch of peaceful marches that go, unchecked by the government, wonderful, great. They're airing their grievances, and if the government lets them do that, yay. But that's obviously not going to be what it takes to overthrow the brutal dictatorship, right? Like, there is no gentle way to say that or to do that. Right? The IRGC, which basically runs the country, is not going to just simply lay down its arms because a bunch of people are peacefully protesting, right? And if anybody starts shooting more, like they've been doing, they're probably going to start shooting back in greater numbers, especially if they're going out on the orders of, Shah Reza Pahlavi, right? Who they clearly do not want, who the IRGC does not want to return to power, because that means they would be out of power. They would be out of jobs. They'd be out of, income and livelihood, etc. And of course, right now, everybody in Iran, economically, pretty much everyone is suffering because of the absolutely disastrous effects of the devaluation of their currency, the rial, which is currently, last time I looked, was around 1.4 million or so rials to the dollar. Might have gotten worse since then, maybe better, I don't know. But it's in a very bad state right now. Somebody recently asked me if this would be a good time to buy some rials. The thing is, you could, in theory, buy some rials, but you have to keep in mind there are a lot of factors that might make it kind of a risky bet, if you will, or a risky trade. One of those risks is that the currency could change overnight, literally, and the old money could be completely worthless. However, in all likelihood, even if the currency were to change, the previous currency before the Ayatollah came to power was also the rial. It just had the Shah's face on it, and for the past 47 years, it's had the Ayatollah's faces on it. So, yes, in theory, you could possibly make that trade, but you have to look at all the information about whether or not that's worth doing, and realize that it is a massive risk, beset on all sides by political factors that may make it, a significant loss if you were to put a lot of money on the line. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. If you are capable of doing so and interested in doing so, that's up to you. I don't advise such things, but certainly is a possibility. But like a new government coming in could also just chop a few zeros essentially off of the value, right, off of the rial. So making it, instead of 1.4 million, They might make it 140,000 reals to $1, or they might make it 14 reals to $1. Who knows what? That actually happened here in Israel a long time ago, when Shimon Peres, who at the time was the finance minister, basically cut off a couple of zeros from the shekel. So instead of like 100 shekels to the dollar or whatever, it became like 1 shekel or whatever. Instead of 400 shekels, it was like 4 shekels, something like that. Which is a little bit of basically financial manipulation, if you want to call it that. But they also could realistically expect that if the government of the Ayatollah is in fact ousted and is replaced by some kind of democratic government that wants peace and stops being an agent of terror and a sponsor of terror throughout the world, you can bet that the US would probably be very quick to offer some kind of financial packages to Iran to help them recover and rebuild their economy. And probably the EU and other groups would also help, in other countries as well. So, but that is a factor to consider, not just about whether or not people might want to put a trade on that, but it's a factor to consider in terms of how important is it for people to overthrow that government. I mean, the people in Iran, because it's ultimately up to them to get that job done. It's really not up to Israel or America or anybody else, even though we might help in some way. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a lot of frogs out doing their thing right now. Here in Israel, a lot of frogs. But yeah, this is something. If there's going to be a revolution in Iran, and I hope it's swift, so that swift and successful, so that absolute minimal loss of life and injury and all that. Because the longer this thing drags out, the more people are going to die, the more people are going to get injured, the more people are going to get arrested, and probably beaten, tortured, and God knows what else they'll do to them. It's a very trying time in Iran. My heart goes out to the people of Iran. I really hope that all of you in Iran and all of you who are Iranians living outside of Iran, who have peace in your heart, get the peace and the freedom that you deserve so very badly. And to all of those of you who still support the IRGC and the Ayatollah for all the brutality it has done for all these years, all I can say is, may justice be served unto you. And karma's a bitch, man. That's how it goes. Yeah, can you guys hear those frogs? So many frogs. I think they're telling us something about the Ayatollah. Can you hear what they're saying? Are they saying revolution now? What do you think? Leave a message in the comment if you think the frogs are warning us of an impending revolution or doom in the face of the protests. Like I mentioned earlier in my video and live stream earlier today, I've spoken with a bunch of people in Iran and outside of Iran who are Iranian. And, their prognosis on the ground, some of them have been in a lot of rallies and protests and demonstrations. Some of them have been to some of the ones where there's been a lot of exchange of gunfire. They're prepared to hunker down and do this for a long time. And honestly, that worries me as somebody who wants to see Iran be free ASAP, because the longer they drag it out, I said it in many videos, the longer they drag it out, the worse it is for the people. Not just because of the obvious fact that more people will get hurt and die, but because the longer it's dragged out, the higher the probability is that it will fail again, and that it will be yet another one of the failed attempts at overthrowing the Islamic Republic of Iran, meaning the government of the Ayatollah. And that's one of the very many risky dangers of not having a massive amount of people come out onto the street by the millions and millions of people. Right? We need to see, literally, as I said many times, 3 to 5 million people out on the streets all at once to do this. Now, of course, I'm not Iranian, right? So, hey, it's just my stupid opinions, if you want to call them that, as somebody who's been observing this situation for literally decades and decades. I have a lot of respect for my friends who are Iranian, and, you know, if they disagree with me on this, I'm not going to argue with them about it, that's for sure. It's their country. I just, as an observer of geopolitics and somebody who has prognosticated quite a lot of things extremely accurately, it does not look good when your so-called momentum will require weeks, if not months, to light that spark and get the thing done. Right? The people in Iran are fully aware of what happened in Venezuela last week. They know that the momentum is on. They know that there's still forward momentum, and the U.S. cavalry is basically standing by, and so are others, to do something if they need to. But that doesn't mean they'll be sitting around forever. Objects in motion will remain in motion until they don't. And friction is usually what stops the thing. In fact, not usually, always what stops the thing. So, again, to all the people in Iran, I sincerely hope you get this done swiftly. I hope you get democracy and freedom and peace very soon, immediately. I hope you are able to get rid of the horrible dictatorship that has oppressed you for so long. And if that is, in fact, something that's going to begin tonight, well, God bless you all. I hope it works. But until then, just going to keep monitoring the situation here. And of course, I will report it to you with any key updates as they happen. So by all means, if you're interested in knowing what is going on from my point of view, again, I'm not Iranian, but I am somebody who analyzes geopolitics and has quite an impressive record when it comes to hits and misses. And I would be very happy to say I was wrong and they did it the right way. Nothing would actually make me happier. But until then, I bid you all a wonderful evening, live from Israel. And shalom to everybody in Iran and to everyone around the world. Peace.